All right. Well, that algorithm is kind of funny. I ended up doing a Joe Rogan video talking about how cancel culture it's just passe at this point. Like if you're going out there saying that cancel culture is the reason that you're not getting booked instead of looking at it as you're either unfunny, we've seen your act, you've kind of had like that saturation moment, or you're just not really engaging, which I mean, hey, I'm dealing with that on YouTube right now where I've gotten some, pretty nice comments, very engaging, lazy content, blah, blah, blah. It's like nobody's ever actually, seen a live stream or anything before. So I guess I can't watch videos on my live stream. And I'll admit that the Joe Rogan video that I watched from the Elephant Graveyard, it's just too good. I had not much to really add to it because it is that captivating where I was like, wow, okay. But I figured why not do one more? Just one more. Because I found a really good video about the Rogansphere and the comedians that permeate the Rogansphere. So I kind of wanted to go through that with you guys, break it down, and yeah, let's enjoy the video.
Not what you know, but who you know is especially true when it comes to Joe Rogan's circle of friends. The comedy scene is booming and those rising to the top all share a common connection, a close relationship with Joe Rogan. This phenomenon has become so mainstream within the podcasting comedy realm that it's even earned its own name. The Rogansphere. The premise is simple. If you're a comedian and close friends with Joe Rogan, or even if you've been a guest on his podcast
I'll admit that kind of looks fun, dressing up in really nice suits and just doing a podcast.
times, you have a significant advantage in achieving success compared to others in the field. While some comedians within the Rogansphere are undoubtedly talented and would have found success on their own, being part of this network accelerates their careers much faster than others. Then there are the comedians who without Rogan's support might have never made it at all. Cat Williams.
I wonder how this guy, again, UFC fighter, if he had never gone on Joe Rogan, he would have never been convinced that he's funny and a personality or something. I don't know, man. Of
was
all
one of
the guys,
first to call it for what it is.
Joe don't want me on there. I need to be on Shannon. Joe got 6 comedians that never been funny. He want to put...
Oh man, that's gotta sting a little.
In this video, we'll examine Joe Rogan's impact on the current comedy scene and the comedians who have leveraged his influence to elevate their careers. Starting with Ari Shaffir.
Get in there nice and deep.
Ari made his first appearance in 2010 on episode 3 of JRE. He was featured in 9 of the first 100 episodes and since has appeared over 60 times, making him one of the podcast's most popular guests of all time. When Ari appeared on Tucker Carlson's podcast, he confirmed that there is benefits that come with being friends with Joe.
What's the effect on a stand-up's career of going on Rogan?
Well, one time.
Well, you get a built-in fan base that just unobjectively thinks that you're funny no matter what you say, and the more cringe you make your humor, the more that you can complain that it's the audience who doesn't get it.
Time is not as big as it once was because there's thousands of episodes. But guys like Theo launched off like a good early appearance. Tim Dillon launched off that. Dave Smith, really.
To be fair, Joe Rogan even launched off of Opie and Anthony. He copied them almost entirely. His entire structure was just making his own Opie and Anthony show.
Became well known.
I know all 3 good guys.
Yeah, and you do well on that. Joey Diaz, but it was consistent ones. It's not like it's kind of like the
even grosser that you're gonna placate to a guy like Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I know those guys. Dude,
Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
You're gonna sit there and pretend that he's a fun hang.
They say,
come on, the Kid Rock thing. I could buy him being a fun hang, but this guy.
you go on there, you're a star.
Unlike many other comedians, Joe had financial stability when he started. Thanks to his roles in News Radio and Fear Factor, this allowed him to support and promote his friends' careers.
He was paying me $150 a set to MC. The standard rate was $50. He was paying $150, and then paying Joey Diaz would go with us also. He's paying him also $150, and the rate for the middle was $100. And then one day he called me and Joey, and he goes, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm giving you guys a raise." But I'm like, no one's offering us that much. Definitely not more. He goes, no, you guys are headliners. You should make headliner money.
That's awesome. I can't even.
I'm giving you $250 a set. So we'd come
That's pretty
home with
cool.
like as much money as I would make pretty much on my own.
And if anybody says like, oh, well, we didn't get that out, then you're just jealous. Like, okay, so Joe Rogan took care of his friends and who he thought were great comedians, watched them grow into headliners, and then decided, hey, you're not making as much money as you should. That's something cool.
Headlining that I never got any work, by the way, but like it would have been the same. And also never touched my wallet and went out to the finest restaurants. You know, it was great.
While Ari is a core member of the Rogansphere, he isn't the most beloved. This isn't because he's not funny, but rather because his humor can sometimes be downright offensive, like when Kobe's helicopter went down. Ari is known for making jokes about people shortly after they pass away. While these jokes rarely upset anyone, his comments about Kobe, who was beloved by millions, really pissed people off. Despite the backlash from his tweet, Ari doubled down with the video.
I know there's always a lot of like hate and pain in the world, and there's always a bunch of terrible stories, and every once in a while there's a good story. Good story comes out. The guy who got away with it got his today. Kobe Bryant is a god. I'm here in Charlotte, the home of the team that originally drafted him. Maybe he wouldn't have ripped that chick in Denver if he had stayed in Charlotte with the Hornets.
Joe has always supported Ari. He was one of
That one's awkward because it's like, yeah, you don't want to piss on a dude's memory right after he dies, but he's not wrong.
the first guest on JRE. He traveled with Joe on the road and was paid more than anyone else would have been paid. Joe's such a good friend, he somewhat felt responsible for Ari's tweet.
One part of me feels responsible. This is why.
Jimmy?
I convinced him that he could have an iPhone and that he could be okay. Just put a timer on it. I go, just put a timer on it. I go, my daughter has a timer on her phone. She can only use it for an hour a day. Just put a timer on your phone. And he should have stuck with a fucking flip.
While Joe may have found the tweet out of line, he ironically laughed when the topic of Ari spiking Bert Kreischer's drink with Molly was brought up. The story goes like this. Ari and Bert were about to record a podcast together. Before they started, Ari made a drink and secretly slipped Bert some Molly. Bert started to feel the effects halfway through the podcast. Instead of enjoying the moment, he began to panic. This caused a major rift between Ari, Bert, and Bert's family. But Joe still laughed and wanted...
Honestly, I mean, that's not cool. And that's the kind of thing that these kinds of scenarios, like when they do this with their friends, it does kind of play into that, oh, yeah, man, we could do that. Like like that's what bros do. That's, yeah, man. Like that's, yeah, I'd be super pissed especially at the age I am now. Like in my 20s, maybe I'd be a little more forgiving, but now, hell no, dude. You pull that crap, especially if I have a panic attack. Ooh, we're done.
take Ari's side.
I don't believe your fake anger.
That's a real weird one.
There's no
Ari.
fake anger in this.
That's
I
a
was.
weird one.
Here's what I did.
I want to be on your side
He's
with this,
really
Ari.
pissed.
Thank you. I
don't
appreciate
think
it.
I
I
can.
appreciate it. End of story. Thank you.
No,
He said he's not on your side.
That's not what I heard.
Joe always stands by his friends,
Dude.
even when they do something as terrible as drugging another friend. Bert wouldn't have been in that situation if Joe hadn't urged him to quit the Travel Channel and go all in on comedy.
Rogan called me up. He was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm drunk, I'm high, I'm on a motorcycle, running through rice paddies in Vietnam. Sun's setting, there's water buffalo everywhere. And he's like, you're the machine. Rogan's like, get the away from Travel Channel. This is who you are. You're a storyteller. You got to talk about this on stage. This is, get that your show sucks. Focus on podcasting.
So that's what Bert did. He went all in on comedy and podcasting. He became a regular on the Joe Rogan Experience, appearing on the podcast 37 times, making him one of the top 10 guests in
It's kind of weird when you see this entire list, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
terms of
Right,
appearances.
Callen.
Every
Greg
time
Fitzsimmons, man. I love Greg Fitzsimmons. That guy is underrated.
someone appears on JRE, they receive what is known as the Rogan bump. So you can imagine what 37 Rogan bumps can do for someone's career. In the beginning, the JRE community loved Bert. He had tons of crazy stories, with one of the craziest being The Machine. As you might have guessed, it was Joe Rogan who convinced him to make it a part of his act.
The way I met you is the last way you should meet Joe. I went up to your house. You were at the door already, and you were like, hey, man. I go, hey, man, Big fan. I got to see the deprivation tank, your dog, and a pool table. Then we need to get high, and then I'm ready to do this. And you were like, caught off guard. You're like, okay. You took me back. I met Johnny Cash. You took me down to the deprivation tank. We played around a pool, went out to that back where the swing set and the chickens ended up being. Smoked. Red Band showed up. It changed my life. You said, hey, man, you got to tell that machine story every time you get on stage. If you hadn't done that, I don't know what the you're doing. If you know that, that's what happened that first night, right? So I tell the machine story to your podcast, and you go, it's one of the best stories. It's one of the best stories ever told. You go, ladies and gentlemen. You go, you tell it on stage? I go, no. You go, you got to start telling that on stage. Hey, everybody, and you talk to you go, he is from now on known as the Machine. You yell the Machine at every one of his shows until make him tell it on stage.
Some people are turned off by Bert's forwardness, but you have to hand it to him. He understood the significance of being in the Rogansphere, but
he's also genuinely a really nice guy. He's one of the few comedians that when I met them, he was super interested in what was going on, with all the opening acts, all the, the open micers.
From that original appearance on JRE, and by taking Joe's advice about the Machine story, Bert transformed it into a multi-million-dollar career. He now has Netflix specials, multiple podcasts, and even a movie called The Machine. A few years ago, his tour brought in over $24 million, and the fully loaded tour is still going strong today. As Bert has grown more...
I will be honest, though, the Machine thing is just... It gets old so fast. I mean, it got old with him taking his shirt off and then telling the story about the Machine thing. Genuinely, like, his podcast appearances are way funnier than his stand-up.
More famous, he's become noticeably more disconnected from reality. An entire economy has developed on YouTube centered around Bert hate, much of it stemming from him making statements like this.
It's so funny, a comic's brain is so different than a pedestrian's brain.
The more people see of Bert, the less they seem to like him. He's loud, constantly interrupts others, and his stories become more embellished over time. It's even reached the point where Rogan has called him out.
I drove past it, and I go, oh, they must have put someone else's belly on me or photoshopped it.
Yeah, and this is like when you go, like, I have legit the best shoulders.
I do. Hold on, I do. I have legit great shoulders. Like, great fucking shoulders.
Yeah. No, you don't.
Joe, they're ripping through this shirt right now.
Yeah, but you say things and you don't really mean it, right? Like, when you say things and you know they're not true.
While Bert receives a lot of hate online, it pales in comparison to the most hated figure in the Rogansphere, Brendan Schaub. Like Bert, Joe Rogan is the reason Brendan Schaub got into comedy. At the time of the infamous podcast,
Callen should be right there with Schaub as far as being hated, because they just, the fighter and the kid, I'm the hater and the kid there. It is a awful fucking podcast. I don't understand how they got so successful. Oh, wait, yeah, I do. Look at this guy.
Schaub was a UFC heavyweight whose career was on a downward trajectory. Schaub was already discussing quitting with Rogan and Callen, so they decided to have the conversation on a podcast.
The reality of your skill set, where you at now, I don't see you beating the elite guys. It's not that you don't try hard. It's not that you're not dedicated. It's not that you're not disciplined. It's not that you're not intelligent. There's that other people can do that you can't do.
Joe wasn't trying to be rude, he was just being brutally honest, something it seemed others weren't doing for Brendan. This included Brian Callen, who was the one to suggest that Brendan could make it in comedy.
What I care about is the fact that you have a future in other things and you're really good at. Like, you're really funny.
Dude, you know how many pictures that I've gotten sent to me that say, don't put me in a sauna, make me my way out? I know. He's say funny shit.
If two professional comedians were telling you that you were funny, why wouldn't you give it a shot? It sure beats the line of work that he was in before. And with the way things were going, it wasn't a moment too soon. After the podcast with Rogan and Callen, Schaub retired from fighting and started podcasting full-time. If any one person's relationship with Rogan is a testament to the Rogan bump, it's Brendan Schaub. Between JRE and The Fight Companion, Schaub has appeared more than 91 times, more than anyone else, trailing only Eddie Bravo, Brian Callen, and Ari Shaffir. Joe Rogan is like the American Idol of the comedy world. His influence can launch you to new heights overnight, allowing you to...
Notice how Duncan and Red Band they distance themselves more and more, and now they're like literally, they come back for, guest spots, essentially.
Skip over the decade of grinding it typically takes most comedians to achieve success. This allowed Brendan to start his career with guaranteed spots at local comedy clubs and even go on worldwide tours with sold-out crowds. It seems like Brendan has a knack for meeting the right people at the right time. Around the same time, he met Theo Von, and together they started the podcast.
Again, there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with meeting other comedians and using that to get some traction.
King and the Sting. In a short amount of time, and by the end of 2018, Brendan had 3 successful podcasts and was hanging around with some of the biggest names in comedy, and even released his first comedy special on Showtime called You'd Be Surprised.
Caught DMing underage girls.
You're going to see a giant improvement in your set. If people saw your first one to now. The first one, I would have probably tried to talk you out of it, but I already talked you out of fighting. Yeah. And I was like, I can't talk him out of this, too. But you could have. But Showtime.
Most comedians take 5, 10, or even 15 years to develop enough quality material for a full-length stand-up comedy special. Comedy fans made their feelings known, as his IMDb rating is one of the lowest comedy specials of all time.
Excuse me, God damn, girl. Shit. Ooh, I can't wait. BTE is right. Big dude energy. I can't wait to get my hands on him. That boy's thick.
Yeah, that was the intro to his first stand-up special. Not even kidding. Very bold.
Bold. Very bold.
Dude, think about having a Showtime special when you're 2 years in, dude.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, very bold.
It's big balls, dude.
Joe eventually admitted that he knew Schaub wasn't ready to release a special, but he still allowed him to promote his comedy to the millions of JRE listeners. This included Brendan's second special, Gringo Poppy, which he claimed would be much better than the first. But the critics didn't agree. It was even worse.
That's a great way to promote your special. It's way better than the first one.
Than his first special with the IMDb.
Then again, self-deprecation it does work sometimes, as long as it, you just realize where you were at. I mean,
B rating, the worst comedy special of all time. This is the second most traumatizing thing to happen in Dallas, right behind the Kennedy assassination. It's all Rogan's fault. Rogan gave a comedy red carpet to a few dead brain cells. While Joe shouldn't be held accountable for all the hate Brendan gets, he is largely the reason Brendan has the platform he does. If anything, it just goes to show how good of a friend Rogan is. If you're his friend, he's got your back, whether you're funny or not. There's no better example of this than with Brian Callen. Joe and Brian have been friends since the time Joe still had hair. Callen has appeared on JRE 86 times. Despite their strong relationship, Joe often gets legitimately angered.
How come nobody ever brings up that Brian Callen was part of the original Mad TV crew? Like, they never talk about that.
By the things Callen says. However, it might not be that Joe is angered by Callen specifically.
Which, if you're going to check out the old crew, check out Will Sasso. That guy is legitimately funny.
But rather, he has a hard time understanding certain aspects of comedy, like when Callen was pretending to be a tough guy.
I got bullied for a full year, and it turned me into if somebody tried to bully me, I'll show up at your house and kill you. That's what happens. I get so angry.
I'm not buying that even remotely.
Like that. I hate when...
Hey,
That's
bro,
not true.
I'm not buying that even remotely.
Hold on, let me handle this.
You talk to too many guys that let you say shit like that, and then it becomes like vernacular.
Callen may not be the best comedian.
Yeah, actually, this is a thing now with like something under 20s, like around 25, like to 20. Or, I mean, it could be even younger. Again, speaking a little out of turn, just because I've just noticed this from a content creator that I've watched where he's like 25, but his language is insane. It's like he took everything from Call of Duty and was just like, yeah, it's what would literally be considered death threats in the 90s if you were to say that stuff to anybody to their face, which, again, for 2024 being the time of cancel culture and you can't say anything, you can get away with saying a lot now.
But he is a decent actor. I think that's where the communication breakdown occurred, because Brian addressed the clip on an episode of The Fighter and the Kid.
Oh yeah, that was when I was fucking joking about what I do to somebody, and Rogan took me seriously. Remember when I said I'll show up at your house and...
But sometimes you'll be doing a bit, and I know it's a bit because we speak the same language for over 10 years now. Yeah. I'll know it's a bit, and I'll entertain it.
I was about to come at you. I was about to go, and you show up at my house.
I know.
The bit was, and I'll you up.
But he cut you off
there. He cut me off, and he goes...
So it looks serious.
The clip, and I again, the way you get cut off, it's...
I just saw the clip, and it said, I saw that people were taking it seriously.
Joe talks to a variety of people, scientists, astronomers, rock stars, so it seems like he sometimes forgets when his comedy friends are making a joke. He especially doesn't like to joke about the UFC, like when Callen was pitching possible opponents for Schaub's UFC comeback.
He's throwing Derek Lewis out there with no gloves.
Good Lord.
But wait, hold on. Just hear me out.
Do you want to die?
Sir, hear me out.
What?
I'm just talking about just shoot a blast double.
Shut
the ground, and then we got that.
The
up. Shut the
Callen has released 4 specials over the last decade, but none were picked up by a major
it's
streaming
kinda
network.
part of the fun
All were released
with-
directly to YouTube with
Again, I'm just saying that I think that that's just the way that they screw with him because they know that's how he's going to react. Which, hey,
the most watched still not receiving 1 million views. For whatever reason, Callen's comedy never gained popularity, but thanks to the Rogan effect, Callen has managed to maintain a career in comedy, even using Joe to grow his other line of business, flip-flops.
Put your toes on. Take those off.
Shut the f
Take the drugs off.
Listen to him. Listen to him.
Come
So
on.
silly.
Well,
I
the
know you
three of
want
us-
to promote your goofy
I'm
flip.
not trying to, I'm not promoting him. I just got
You can't even
for
call
you.
them toe holds.
Feel him under your
Put your
feet.
toe holds on.
Feel him for you. Feel him under your feet. Come on.
While it may seem like Joe Rogan has only helped unfunny people gain fame through comedy, he has also supported multiple comedians who are truly talented but might have never reached the fame they deserved, like Joey Diaz. Early in his career, Joe Rogan took Ari and Joey Diaz on the road with him. He not only paid them better than most headliners, but would also work around Joey's addiction issues, hiring another comic to fill in just in case Joey didn't show up.
So for a while, he just brought Joey Diaz with him, and then and Joey was back then, and sometimes he just would not show up. And he could bring a local, but you got to be supportive to the scene. You got to help guys that are struggling. And he'd bring just Joey, and then Joey he'd get to the airport, and he's like, Joey, where are you? No one answer his phone. And then he'd land in the new city. He's like, where are you? He goes, something came up. I missed my flight. And it's like, I was at the airport. You missed your flight. He just, coke excuses, you know?
Yeah.
And so he's just like, he's unreliable. He might not show up. It became too much. But instead of saying, you can't come anymore, he goes, I'll just bring a second opener. So if you don't come, I've still got somebody. It's nuts to have an employee go, I just don't show up a lot. Like, I guess I'll hire 2 employees then.
Then there's Theo Vaughn. Theo undoubtedly achieved success on his own without the help of Joe Rogan. Rather than using JRE to gain fame, Theo became successful enough to be invited on the podcast.
2 Thanksgivings ago, we had 2 owls at my sister's
again, Opie and Anthony comic.
house.
I saw one last night, actually. Pulled into the driveway and an owl took off. It was
Part of the
big,
New York
too.
scene.
It's gross, I think.
Owls?
The meat.
You guys ate owls?
Yeah,
I don't think that's legal. You probably shouldn't
Also,
say that.
wait, Theo Vaughn, they keep, again, I'm not sure why they keep negating this, but Theo Vaughn was part of the, I think, Road Rules. He was on one of those shows. So, like, he had fame before he was even a comedian.
On the podcast.
Well, I didn't have a lot. I think I even spit it out. I'm not even joking.
It's like
yeah.
Bill Clinton when he smoked that weed.
But see how much little meat is on him? You think there's more.
Theo was able to leverage his appearance on JRE to grow his own podcast. After his 3rd appearance on JRE, he strategically dropped an episode featuring Jordan Peterson on his own channel, which remains one of the most watched podcasts on his channel to this day. And there's Shane Gillis. Shane would have undoubtedly...
Clean your room. You need to go. Make sure that you go make your bed so you at least did one thing. That was like the one piece of advice that I kind of was like, that's not that bad. But when you're depressed, you're like, yeah, you know what? It's a small win. And then you're just like, oh, did you know that the woke left, they're just taking away all of masculinity. You can't be masculine anymore. You can't even look at a woman's boobies and say, you have very nice boobies.
Achieve success on his own, but he knew long before he even met Joe that being a guest on JRE was a milestone he needed to reach to get to the next level.
Me and Shane combined could beat up any comedian in the business. We're not worried
Except
about
you, St. Rogies.
Except St. Rogies.
You're too powerful for us, and we would never put a hand on you.
True.
Please help! Help! God damn it, what's taking so long? I need your help! Dying out here, Joe. God damn it.
Even after Shane was fired from SNL, it took Joe over a year to have him on JRE, and it took convincing from 2 of his friends that he helped prop up over the years.
We recommended Shane Gillis for a year.
How long did we text back and forth? Ari one time.
Why is this guy not taking this guy?
And we're like, yo, we got to send him the Toyota Isis.
It's like all these guys abandoned New York, and we're just like, we're going to bring all the New York comedy, like the entire New York comedy scene, and try and get them to LA and Austin, which part of what makes it the New York comedy scene is kind of the cellar and, you know, the atmosphere in which these guys exist. So,
and then Ari's like, I'll send it. You reply and be like,
funny is
Yep.
this, Ari?
Yep.
Listen, I get to things.
Oh my God, you're right.
I get to
good
things in
call,
the
Ari.
perfect amount of time.
Once Shane finally made it to JRE, he didn't waste the opportunity. He's now a regular, has brought Matt McCusker on, and is a fixture on the best sub-podcast called Protect Our Parks. So yeah, the saying, it's not what you know, but who you know, is spot on when it comes to Joe Rogan's influence in comedy. Give me that old-time religion! The saying, it's not what...
All right, well, I tried to interject a little bit more on this one to that, I really do feel bad about the elephant graveyard. I got too interested in it and, XQC'd that, if you know what that means. Well, all I can really say in summary to this is that there are a few comedians that were missing from that it's still kind of sad to see. Like Dan Soder's not really getting brought into that circle as much. But, I'm glad that Theo went on, find success. I'll actually be covering his interview with Donald Trump in the near future here, so look out for that. But, yeah, you know what? Oddly enough, I kind of found myself going like, oh, you know what? These are some of the good things about Joe, where, he would praise, comedians openly and then try to promote them as best he could. Sometimes he failed a little bit, like the Shane Gillis one, which is weird that, like, you're going to harp on the fact that he didn't have Shane Gillis when Shane Gillis is literally a regular now. So, I get it. And Gillis did have one of the funniest, like, early bombs just because Rogan didn't get the joke. So that's one of my favorite moments on the JRE podcast that I listened to. I'll full on admit that every once in a while, if I see a comedian that I respect go on there, I will check out I'll check it out. I'll check out the interview. But again, Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, his regulars that he's put over, I can't stand listening to them anymore. Tom Segura, I don't care. I don't care. His comedy, even, like, his last comedy special just was not good. You want to talk about phoned in? Like, there it is. Bert Kreischer, at least he, started telling stories, so he's at least got that. But Joe Rogan's latest comedy special, it really did feel like this could be his last one because it took 6 years to put together, and it really just was not good. It was the first time I've ever seen him go back to a joke that he used, I want to say, almost 10 years ago. And yeah, that was something that kind of shocked me. Again, I think it was the 2020, or no, it was the 2018 special it was okay. But that's when you started to see the cracks where you're just like, huh, okay, this is unfortunate, but I'm not going to sit here and completely crap on Joe Rogan, pretending that he doesn't have the influence that he has, and also not being just a jealous turd about it, because you do see a lot of that where they're just like, oh, look at this guy barely putting in any effort, getting 1 million views. Like, come on, get over yourself. But yeah, support your comedians that, and make sure that they don't need the Joe Rogan push to, and get into that circle. Because every once in a while, like Mark Norman, I hate to say it, the more he hung around Joe Rogan, the more you could see it. The more you could see the Rogan influence in his comedy, and then it just, like, it became less funny and less engaging. So, man, I am, for some reason, having just, like, a ridiculous amount of saliva right now, and I don't know why. So I'm gonna go and try and figure that one out. But if you enjoyed this content, leave a like, comment, and definitely subscribe, please. I'm trying to get to 1,000. It really helps me. So if you can, subscribe, and yeah, let's try and get to that 1,000 together. I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one.